Dayten, just want to say thanks for joining me on this call. Uh, for anyone who's not aware, this call is basically just a conversation about cold email. Dayten has a lot of experience, which hopefully he's going to share with us. Do you want to give a brief introduction about your background in cold email?
Yeah. My name is Dayten. I'm technically the revenue officer of Niche Capital. We're a lending platform, automated lending platform, where you get lines of credit without having to get scammed, spammed, or fucking called a billion times by a broker and get lied to and all that type of thing. So, the way we've grown all of our businesses, which not to sound like I have a billion businesses or anything, but our marketing agency that we started with. And now this is through cold email. It's all I've done. I have a background in lending. I was a loan officer back in like 2020, a mortgage loan officer when the rates were good. And then I've always had a background in lending. Before that, I was in business lending. So I've always either been in lending, and I've always used just cold email to get in front of people. So that's what I've always done. It's what worked for me. And it's really one of the most effective ways to do things.
A lot of people that get into cold email usually will do that sort of manual approach in the beginning, and then they kind of evolve into higher volume and all that kind of stuff. Is that what you did, or how has your sort of journey or tactics changed over time?
I started with this guy, Alex Berman. I don't know if some people know who he is, some people don't. Not to plug him on your thing, but I learned about cold email from this guy named Alex Berman a long time ago. I was probably still in high school at the time. And it was like really janky, and you're using Yesware, and like everything was manual, and you had to manually write first lines. Actually, before I even got into lending, I used to have my health and life insurance license, and I was selling healthcare. I was group healthcare, and I got an appointment with EA Sports HR director. That was my first successful cold email. I ran it at Orange Coast College, waiting for my girlfriend. I set it all up on my Mac. Boom, boom. I sent the email. I sent it from my personal email. Like, it was so scary, but it worked. She replied back. She's like, okay, like, let's have a conversation. But what happens is, George, is the progression of cold emails like this. You start and you always want more leads. You want more. And you start thinking, well, what if I do this? What if I do this? And then stuff starts breaking. Account health. And then you find yourself like in all these different rabbit holes, all these things, trying to figure out like what's a Power MTA server, what's an SMTP server, and then you find out rotating IP addresses is something that just was made up. It's a lie. Like, you go down all these different rabbit holes, and you kind of always end up at the same place, which is just do the basics really well. But that's how I started with cold email. A lot of things I think people do is like a lot of people follow the same thing. They send a few emails, they get some responses, they send a little bit more, and then they have this aha moment. They're like, what if I sent 30,000? And it's like, well, and then they break their system. And then it's like they almost got bit by like the cold email bug. Because now they're always like, what if I send 300,000? And they're just constantly chasing the ability to send more mail, basically.
Yeah. I guess there's two things I want to ask you based on what you just said. They're completely different though, so maybe we'll take them one at a time. The first is your comment about rotating IPs and how you said it's, well, BS or whatever. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that? And then additionally, I also want to hear your thoughts on, do you think this never-ending chase of sending more cold emails makes any sense? Or do you think it makes more sense to have more targeted campaigns where you're sort of launching maybe 20 different campaigns where they're all super targeted versus just trying to expand volume in an endless fashion?
Look, number one, the more niche you can get, the better. The best campaigns we've ever ran was like some of these tax credit campaigns. Some of the stuff that was just so hyper niche. Like if we had a company, if we had 300 companies that we knew did like industrial lubricant manufacturing, and we referenced that, we know that they do they do white label deals for oil distributors because they're in the industrial lubricant manufacturing space. And we referenced the relative case study that I got a case study because I talked to somebody and they like told me something. And then I just used that to develop a case study and send it. I borrowed a case study. Those have been the sickest campaigns I've ever seen run in terms of numbers. But it gets to a point where you got to ask yourself, like, are you worried about your reply rate, or are you worried about getting on the phone with more people? And there's a fine line between the two. So I think I think it depends on your offer. But if for the majority of people, you're always going to be better off starting at running like 5, 6 asynchronous, super hyper niche campaigns, like only reaching out to accountants that do government audits, or only reaching out to, like, you really want to niche down. That's the only, and I don't want to get off here, but that's the only thing I think Clay is good for. I think Clay is fucking wasting everyone's time. Someone should delete that software from the face. It's wasting everyone's time. They're like, we need to enrich all of our data. Like, no, you don't. You really don't. Just make sure, the only thing that matters is make sure the person does what you think they do. Number one. And so I think the majority of people watching this, it's better if you always just start with niche. You can always go bulk mail crazy. Start niching down as hard as possible. Now, to your second question about rotating IP addresses. Yeah, man, like these people that are going to use these type of programs, like these type of softwares, they're not systems administrators, George. They don't even know how to SSH into a server. They don't know how to swap out an IP address. Like, they don't know how to change IP addresses. They don't know how to set up different MTAs like Green Arrow or Power MTA. I mean, majority of people are going to have to Google right now what I just said, Power MTA. No one knows what Power MTA is, So it can be useful. Like if you have enough warmed up IPs, like the way you'd have a rotating IP is what you would do is you would take if you had control over it, you would warm up your IP address with transactional emails. Like if someone with a real company is watching this, like if you have an IP address you've been running for like postmarked for transactional IPs, for transactional emails, however you're doing it, you take that IP and you toss it over for outreach, for cold outreach, and you'll have to drip in your cold outreach. That's how you'd want to, in quote, like rotate your IPs.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just something the Indians made up to sell,
Yeah, I suppose I think that's kind of a common theme in the cold email space. A lot of companies they borderline just make up random buzzwords to sort of promote their products. It's they won't admit it, but that's really the reality.
Yeah, that's why people are gonna always have to rely, whether they want to admit it or not. And that's why email chasers is so good, because I know you guys link into accounts really well. Like I was really pleased with how you guys have account setups on the back end. And most people don't understand you're always gonna have to use Google. Like, stop thinking you're gonna go manage an SMTP server and you're going to have your backend server stack and it's going to be all gravy. Like, your IPs are always going to get burnt. Your domains are always going to get burnt. You're always going to get blacklisted. It's fighting a never ending cycle. You're never going to get to use Kantaba, or excuse me, you're never going to get to use what's that ESP, like Mailjet. You're never going to get to use Mailjet. They're always going to kick you from their system.
You're talking about like any kind of SMTP sending, like a newsletter platform or like a transactional.
Yeah. Brevo's going to kick you. Like, all these people are going to kick you from their platform. You're never going to get to use these guys. Like, I promise you, because what happens is these companies, they buy a block of there's only a finite amount of IPv4s. Like, that, right? There's only a set amount of IP addresses. So these guys buy a block of IP addresses, and their whole job is they have people that are in charge of reputation. That's all they do. Is their whole job is making sure that so when you get on there and try to blast out your spam, it doesn't work well. So you're always that's why people need companies like email chasers, because if you don't have guys like you're not going to be able to use like G Suite and Outlooks and all that sort of thing, which is what you're always going to have to use to run cold email. Like, the best cold email campaigns we've ever run are from just a ton of G Suites. And anybody who tells you about their private infrastructure is unfortunately just mistaken. It's I guess I'm saying this because I don't think that thousands and thousands of people are going to see this, but the truth is there's no such thing, There's no such thing. It's G Suite, and it's just G Suite right now. That's it.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but every time I hear people promoting private infrastructure and all these kinds of things, it always seems like the reason why those people are they're trying to convince themselves that that's the solution is because they might be running cold email campaigns for like 50 companies as a lead gen agency. And obviously, when you're running campaigns for so many different companies, it just becomes very problematic trying to scale up everything compared to if you're just one company doing it for yourself, which is, in my opinion, way easier. So I think it's like,
House of cards.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of important to listen to who are you taking advice from and what are they doing? Because what they're doing might be completely different to what you're doing. And so that what they're doing might not actually make any sense for what you're doing. I just think
there's one company I know with a pretty decent private infrastructure. That's this company called ListKit. ListKit does pretty good. We know these people really well. They're all really, really good above board guys. They have a decent private sending. Their private infrastructure is pretty good. Like they know cold email really, really well. They're the guys that started this thing called client ascension, and they do really good. But like that's far and few in between though. That's the point I'm trying to make. Most like there's all these I don't want to plug all these guys, but there's all these other guys, and it's just piss poor fucking delivery, lies and bullshit, you know?
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I mean, this is I guess not related to, well, it's sort of related to the idea of basically BS in the industry. For a while I've been sort of saying bad things about email warm-up tools, and a lot of people disagree with me, which is fine. But I'm actually running a campaign right now, 2 campaigns, basically A/B tests. They're the exact same. Every single variable is the exact same, except that one of these campaigns is using a warm-up tool from one of our competitors, and then the other campaign is not doing any warm-up. And currently, so far, the campaign that has no warm-up has literally doubled the number of replies. It's still relatively early, so yeah, I'm going to be making a video on this and probably releasing it in about 1 or 2 months once there's more and more data. But if this trend continues, it's just going to be kind of interesting because it's just like another example of, I don't know, maybe don't listen to what everyone's saying. Yeah.
Look, if you don't think there's a guy at Google that's getting paid $500,000 a year to map out what emails are replying to what emails, like if you don't think they can see that all your emails are getting replied because they OAuth in, they give authorization to send, like they can see all this stuff, like that's
like sorry to cut you off, like in the subject line, it literally there's a code.
Yeah. There's a UUID on every single email, and some of them say warm up dash. Like I know on some of these tools, like I think Instantly does that, and it's like, dude, these ESPs know all these accounts and Instantly are emailing to each other. And if they wanted to find out, they just make an Instantly account, add their email, and see who's replying to them in the inbox. Like that's the big thing. Another big thing that not enough people talk about is spam traps. No one talks about spam traps. Have you heard of spam traps?
Yeah. I mentioned spam traps, and so there's an article on a blog that talks about warm up, and I mentioned briefly why that's a potential issue, but please get into detail because I'm sure everyone wants to.
Yeah, man. Look, here's like you want to talk about what's the problem with managing your own SMTP servers, and I've done it. Like we've run like 2,000 to 3,000 accounts on Instantly, running postfix, MTA servers, and I've done them all myself and set them all up. And the problem is these spam traps. You'll hit a spam trap, and now you're on the UC3 protocol list, and you're on this one, and you don't deliver anywhere anymore. And it just kills your momentum. It's the kiss of death. And that's the problem. And you can do a lot of things to negate this, to get around this, but it's a lot of work, and most people aren't prepared for it. Like you take your list of like, let's say 300,000 contacts, and you have to run them through like your crap server, like Contabo. Like you have to run them through a crap SMTP server and run them through that. And then if you get put on then you have to monitor while you're emailing this list, you have to monitor your IP and your domain reputation. Like through what's that tool? Like Hetrix Tools is a good one. And when you get notified that you're on one of these lists, you know that within like the last hour, something you set to a spam trap. So you pull all those leads, you pull the MX records, and you start analyzing them and try to find out which one's on it. And you can pull out all the potential spam traps. So you have to like pre-email your list, analyze it heavy, try to get all the spam traps out. Then run it again because you're going to miss something, and you keep doing it until you're not showing up anymore, which you've emailed your list like 4 or 5 times at this point, and then you have a clean list. Then you can take that list and you can throw it in something and mail to it on your clean server. It's called the dirty to clean method. One of my really good friends taught me this. It's called the dirty to clean method, and it works really well. But it's a lot of work. And that takes time. You know. But to be clear, I think the warm up's a little bit of bullshit too. I really do. I don't think the warm up's crazy important, but I think that above warm up, I think that people don't. And there's not really a lot. There's not a solution for spam traps. No one's really like. There's a database for people that know like the majority of spam trap emails and stuff, but they don't catch them all. You know. They don't catch them all. And what's sad, people know this, the people that set up these spam traps, they're other cold emailers that just want to kill competition. Like who do you think set up these blacklists? Guys that send bulk mail, man. That's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's probably going to take the kind of person who's sending that kind of email activity to want to set up those kinds of systems, because they're the kinds of people who understand it the best, probably.
Yeah, 100%. There's like you can develop a workflow to go through a list, mail through the list, and find spam traps for sure. You know, it's definitely doable. But I'd say that's go ahead.
I just want to ask a question. I mean, if let's pretend you're scraping leads from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, in real time, so targeted lead lists, and you're not using warm up. In that kind of scenario, do you think people doing that kind of stuff, do they have to worry about spam traps, or that's pretty safe?
No, if you're just scraping from like Sales Navigator, you know, you don't have to worry about. You don't have too much to worry about when it comes to spam traps, I think. And if you hit one, like you might end up on some janky blacklist that doesn't matter. Like some of these blacklists on MX Toolbox, they don't matter too much at all. Some of them do, but some of them IP addresses are just always listed on there. But I think what's more important than warm up to spam traps is killing G Suite accounts, killing whatever you're killing it when it's not performing well. Like sometimes you just get a bad block of IPs from G Suite when you set up an account, and if it's not performing in the beginning, I promise you it's not going to get better with time. Like one thing I think that people need to focus on heavily with cold email is when an account is underperforming, just nuke it immediately. It's not going to get any better.
Yeah, well, a lot of beginners, they don't want to do that because it's almost like they get emotionally attached to their first email account. Like, you know, they spend so much time setting up their first few email accounts that they sort of treat them like they're this sort of forever thing. And yeah, I mean, like I have some email accounts that I've been using for well over a year and they still perform great, but that's because they're only part of super targeted lists with really high response rates. I'm not doing anything sketchy, but like obviously for most people who are not doing that, I agree with you. You have to have a different mindset.
Yeah, man, we have a cold email client that's been with us for 3 years and we've never done anything to his accounts, and they just chug. I call them chug. It's just a slow chug. And you know, I don't want to expose the niche he's reaching out to, but he went to a good college and we plug it, and he has a cool offer, and we don't send a ton of volume. You know, it's like probably 15 accounts, 20 emails a day, and he gets a crazy amount of lead flow from that. Because back to my very original point, you said, well, what bulk or niche? Because he's niched down really heavy, really, really niched down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, people get emotional with this stuff, and they build their first system and don't realize like you're gonna have to nuke it in a couple months, man. If you're trying to make anything, if you're trying to do something serious. But some of it, depending on what they're selling though, if you're selling like industrial automotive automation, you're selling like mechanical arms to like factories and stuff, you could probably grab 30, 40, 50 inboxes and just use 25, have 25 on standby, and you can chug along on a list low and slow and do relatively well.
Yeah. Yeah. People get emotional, but let's not forget, we're just sending emails here. So,
no one's going to jail over emails. Like, you know what I mean?
Emails. Yeah. It's not a big deal.
That's a good point too. Like I was always told, no one's like, oh, you can't exit your company for $1 billion because that one time you sold 5,000 emails with the misspelling in it or something. Like that never happened to anybody. Like, don't worry, just send the mail.
The funniest are the people like on LinkedIn or Twitter who they will get super insecure and take it super personally when you criticize even things like their email copy or even the number of follow-ups they send. It's just like, yeah, we're talking about emails here. Yeah, it's not. It's a different opinion on how to send the emails. Is not gonna. Yeah, it doesn't mean much.
Yeah. There's thousands of different ways people like sell stuff. You know, it's no different than cold mail. Cold mail is effective though, truthfully, George, because there's no other marketing tactic. And I don't want to get you biblical here, but I mean, name another marketing tactic that I can get in front of 10,000 business owners within 3 weeks, like without sub $2,000. Go ahead, I'll wait. It's not real, and that's why these big companies don't like it, because it's like they're spending like millions of dollars on ads, millions of dollars on search, millions of dollars on social. And then we come along and just blitz out, 100,000 emails and get in front of the same client. It's a cheat code. And that's why I like cold email, because it's almost like the anti-establishment marketing tactic. Like, I'm not going to go and use your Google smart bidding. It sucks. Like it all sucks, man. I don't have the ad budget to like, how's the broker in Pennsylvania supposed to compete with, On Deck when they're spending millions on ads and this guy like only does like 60 to 100K a month? Like, how's he supposed to compete with that? He can't. That's you basically just by forcing companies to run ads and by killing cold email, you're simultaneously co-signing corporates run the world, corporate only, F small business. You basically give the middle finger to small business. Like, small business needs a way to get in front of clients that are going to help them grow, and are going to help them get in front of clients that are going to ultimately help them grow. You can't do that running ads. The VP of marketing at the company that you want to do copy for, you're not going to get them with your meta funnel. I promise you're not going to get them with your meta funnel. Cold email is the only way you're going to get in front of these big brands.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that for the people who don't agree with that, I think it's because they're not doing cold email right. So there's a segment of people who they will claim that they've tried cold email and that they didn't get results, and then they'll say, oh, it doesn't work. But actually it didn't work, probably because either your offer sucks, your copy sucks, or whatever other numerous issues you had. I mean, you can cold email anyone. I mean, and they will respond if you have something relevant to say which they care about.
Yeah, people don't care about getting cold called. People don't care about getting cold emailed if it's relevant. Like, the only you don't contact me emails, it's like, hey, saw you do concrete. And he's like, dude, I'm a financial advisor. Don't fucking email me again. Like, what's wrong with you, bro? So having like the step one, people need to know, it's like, you need to make sure the person you're reaching out to is the person you're reaching out to. They do the things that you think they do. If you emailing contractors, spend some time making sure the list is a contracting list. At the very least, scroll through your spreadsheet and just randomly click a few and just, click 15 through websites. And if they all do concrete, hey, it's a pretty good list. If you can use something like Clay or Airtable to scrape the site and see if it's actually, a concrete company, that's good as well. But the people that don't like cold email, man, are these spoiled Ivy League brats that got laid up a ton of VC capital and they just been pumping ads their whole life. And they're like, oh, that's spam. And you're like, shut up. Sorry, I don't have $100 million from Sequoia Capital to run marketing campaigns. Like, arguably what I'm doing is harder. I'm building something out of thin air here, brother. A couple grand and I'm closing clients, not like you and your giant team and your giant ad funnel. Like, we don't have that stuff. The people that don't like, I mean, I got into this guy one time. He was like commenting on my LinkedIn and stuff, freaking out. I had a client who went to USC. And so I emailed all these USC alumni and said, hey, one of your alumni had great marketing results with us. Do you have some time to talk? And he freaked out about it. I built so many businesses and all, and they start flexing. It's like, I know, man, you've built so many businesses, and yet a guy and me who emails businesses have never heard of you. We don't know what you do or how you do it. And on top of that, let's say you are the guy that did all that and exited all these companies with your sick EBITDA multiple, right? It's like, why are you acting like that? The fact you're acting like that tells me you've never done any of this stuff. And the theme amongst these people is the same underlying theme. I'm a college graduate. These are the characteristics of people that don't like cold email. College graduate, number one. Every time college graduate. Promise you'll never come across someone that doesn't like, always a college graduate that doesn't like cold email. Two, started companies and always had some type of referral network or because they belong to their what do you call it? Their frat. They always got plugged into referrals pretty easily. It was easy to get in front of people. And then number three, they're older. they're pretty much always older for the most part. They're always like 40 plus. Those are the characteristics of people that don't like cold email. Everybody else thinks it's fine, you know?
Oh yeah, I think if cold email annoys you, that says more about you than it does about cold email. I mean, maybe go do some yoga or something, you know? Like,
chill out, bro.
Yeah,
it's
gonna cost me
yeah,
again for weeks. Like just
yeah, it's not that deep. I sent you an email. You're not gonna die, you know? If you don't want to get emailed again, just let me know. I'll make sure I never email you again. Believe me, I don't want to email you. I'm not emailing you to bug you. I'm emailing you to make money and to get on the phone with people. If you don't want to be emailed and you're screaming at me, I promise you I'll never email you again.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Just sending some emails here.
Yeah. So, that's why companies like Email Chaser are so important, because it gives power to small business to reach out to people. Like, if there's a couple of things people can take away from this, who are going to run some cold email or who are watching this and thinking, well, how do I get on the phone with people? One, targeted lists, niche down targeted lists. Only start sending to your verified contacts. Run through run through some type of email verification tool and make sure they're verified. If they're not verified, don't email to them. Your basic outline for a script is, hey, first name, saw you do this. We do this. We've helped this company similar to you do this. Open to a call. That script right there is like, that's your bread and butter. You can run quick question, or you can run like hi from your name, works really good too. Just simple, simple stuff like that. Quick question is a little burnt in my opinion. Or you can go like for company name. That works really good. But if you stick to these basic principles, you'll have successful cold email campaigns. Cold calling's worked for 1,000,000 years. It's going to work for 1,000,000 more years. Cold emails worked for a long time. It's going to work for a long time in the future. So if you stick to these basic principles, just like cold calling, if you stick to some basic principles, you'll always be able to get on the phone with a qualified prospect and have leads you can talk to people.
Yeah. And just for anyone who's listening who might be a beginner, when Dayten says verified emails, am I right to think we're referring to valid email addresses and not? Would you include catch-alls in there or just valid?
No, for this, when you start sending, I would just include valid. I would leave out your catch-all. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of services out there that claim they verify catch-alls and all this kind of stuff. But when I look at any of my campaigns and I include any kind of catch-alls, even if they're sort of verified catch-alls, the bounce rate is always significantly higher. And I personally don't think it's worth the risk, especially in the beginning of the campaign with some new email accounts. It's probably not the best idea.
Yeah, I've said a lot of things on this video about spam traps and blacklists and stuff, but yeah, bounces are like the worst. Talk about a kiss of death. It's right up there with spam traps. Stay away from it in the beginning if you can, by only sending to good verified clean lists. And for the time being, if you guys didn't know, like you cannot email to Outlooks right now. Outlook, I've had terrible success emailing to Outlooks. I mean, what's your experience been, George?
The campaigns I'm running right now are lower volume than a lot of people probably, so my data set might not be comparable to someone who's sending like 100,000 emails per month, but I still get responses from Outlook accounts even now. But I am doing ESB matching, so I am doing Outlook to Outlook, Gmail to Gmail. Whether that makes a huge difference, who knows? But that's what I do anyways. The Outlook accounts I'm using right now are actually quite old, so they're over a year old. I set these up a while ago, and these are part of sort of a set of email accounts I've had for a while, doing really low volume but targeted lists. So they're pretty healthy. Maybe the age is helping as well. I think, again, this is speculation. I don't have really enough data to really say anything for certain here, but maybe the fact that they're a little bit older and they're sort of on the healthy side maybe means that they work. I mean, if you set up a brand new Microsoft 365 account and you start sending emails to Outlook on day one, I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah, we send a lot of mail still to this day, like a lot of mail. And right now, every time we throw in Outlooks, they just bounce like crazy.
Yeah. Oh, one thing, I haven't been talking for a while, so I'll try to wrap this up soon. But one thing I was mentioning real quick, where anyone who doesn't already know this, when you set up a new Microsoft 365 email account, there's like a couple random things you usually have to do inside your account. Otherwise, when you connect your Microsoft email accounts to sending tool like Email Chaser or whatever, they start bouncing and they don't send properly. Like, enabling two-factor authentication, making sure you're not on the trial tenant in Microsoft, because then they automatically put you on there, and if you're still on there, the sending doesn't work. So yeah, this might it's not necessarily related to what you're saying, Dayten, but it's just kind of good to know.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I remember the Microsoft days where that's what all people were using for a while. And, and it was like with some of these email sending tools. So those are important steps because people will do all that stuff, George, and they won't do those things. They'll be like, why am I bouncing? I hate cold email,
Was like they never actually sent. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing's sent, guys. You gotta do the prerequisites.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for about 30 minutes here. Before we go, do you want to sort of tell it? I mean, do you do client work right now? Have you
No,
okay.
no client work. We're scaling a fintech company. That's our bread and butter, man. That's what we're trying to do our hardest right now. And right now it's tough to get like VC funding and all this stuff. So we're just bootstrapping it. We're in the same boat. And but what we do is at Niche Capital, we're a full automated online marketplace where you can really, it's not a marketplace, it's a lending platform. Like you can just go on and get a line of credit for your company. So if you have a business, you need a line of credit, you need to, bridge some receivables, whatever the case may be, and you're tired of talking to these brokers in like New York City and getting lied to and all this type of bullshit. You can jump on our platform, upload your documents, connect your account via Plaid, boom, boom, get an offer back, check out, book your funding call you. Okay, great. Boom. And you got a line of credit. It's really simple. We made it super easy to get through, and we're excited about it.
Well, I'm going to include your website as well as your LinkedIn in the description of this YouTube video when we publish it. And yeah, hopefully we can do these calls, every week or every other week whenever you're free. And so anyone watching this who enjoyed this conversation, who wants to see more of this, just obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out Dayten on LinkedIn. Check out his website. If you want to send cold emails, feel free to try Email Chaser. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. Yeah. And I would let the people know, like, Email Chaser is going to, like, a lot of the stuff we talk about here, it's going to incorporate that stuff,
Yeah. And also one thing for everyone watching, our product right now is still super early. So you're going to see over the course of 2025, major improvements. So if you've tried us or you're currently using us, trust me when I say 6 to 12 months from now, it's going to be very different.
Yeah. I know George. I know I don't want to give away all of his detail, but I know what he's developing, what he's putting in. It's going to be kick ass. I know every setting tool out there, and I've like personally given him my best advice on what's actually working for real cold emailers, like cold emailers built by cold emailers, like for cold emailers. And I truly think Email Chasers is probably going to smoke everybody in the market right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of work to do to get there, but that's the plan.
You'll get there. All right. Well, look, this has been a productive conversation. Thanks for having me, George.
Yeah, no problem.